In the latter part of 2023, as the devastating war relentlessly engulfed Gaza, leaving a trail of destruction and despair in its wake, a highly controversial proposal, dramatically titled the Great Trust Plan, began to emerge from the shadows. It outlined a sweeping and ambitious reconstruction of the entire Gaza Strip, envisioning a complete transformation of the war-torn territory. The plan aimed to create a secure, prosperous, and thriving society for the Gazan people, promising a brighter future after the ravages of the conflict. The ambitious plan called for the establishment of an international consortium comprised of various global entities to govern Gaza on a temporary basis, effectively sidelining existing political factions, most notably Hamas, from any immediate control. Immediate priorities, as outlined in the proposal, included stabilizing the volatile territory, ensuring a sense of security and order, and delivering crucial humanitarian aid to the suffering population, providing essential food, water, and medical supplies. This would be followed by a massive and comprehensive rebuilding effort, focusing on homes, hospitals, schools, and vital infrastructure. The ultimate goal was to hand over a completely revitalized and demilitarized Gaza Strip, free from armed conflict and ready for a new chapter. This revitalized Gaza would then be handed over to a new, locally chosen leadership, with the hope of finally breaking the devastating cycle of violence. Proponents of the Great Trust Plan argued that only a radical and economically driven approach, focusing on sustainable development, could ultimately bring about a lasting and meaningful peace to the region. The plan promised a modern, globally integrated Gaza, connected to the world economy and open to international investment. But it came with strict conditions attached and an aggressive, some would say unrealistic timeline for implementation. The plan was backed by significant financial and political interests, both regionally and internationally, giving it considerable weight. It was presented as a meticulously detailed and actionable blueprint, ready to be put into motion with the necessary support. Yet, its sweeping vision for Gaza and its top-down approach to control and governance raised serious concerns. This made it deeply contentious and controversial from the very start, sparking heated debates and raising significant questions about its feasibility and long-term impact. The ambitious Great Trust Plan wasn't conceived within the halls of governments or by the United Nations. Instead, it emerged from a select group of influential business leaders, individuals who wield considerable power in the global economy. And it was also shaped by the insights and strategies of seasoned political consultants, experts in navigating the complexities of international relations. Jared Kushner, widely recognized for his role in brokering the Abraham Accords, served as a central figure in this initiative, lending his experience and connections. He brought to the table his distinctive brand of deal-making diplomacy, characterized by a pragmatic and results-oriented approach. Significant financial backing was expected from Gulf investment funds, and the involvement of private capital firms was deemed absolutely key to the plan's success, providing the necessary resources for large-scale development. The core objective was to rebuild Gaza through the dynamic forces of the market, prioritizing investment and economic growth over traditional forms of humanitarian aid. The Tony Blair Institute, a prominent policy think tank, was initially linked to the project, seemingly adding a veneer of institutional legitimacy and credibility to the endeavor. However, the institute later made the decision to distance itself from the plan. The architects and planners involved in the Great Trust essentially envisioned Gaza as a blank slate, a place ripe for radical transformation. Their ultimate goal was to transform it into a thriving Mediterranean hub for international trade and commerce, a center for technological innovation, and a premier destination for tourism. Heavily inspired by the meteoric rise of Dubai and the economic powerhouse of Singapore, they firmly believed that strategic economic incentives could be the catalyst for profound societal and political change. Their vision was one of radical modernization, a complete overhaul of Gaza's infrastructure and economy. But this vision came with a potential cost: the upending of Gaza's existing social fabric and the displacement of its traditional communities. The plan's most explosive element was the proposed mass relocation of Gazans. It called for clearing large areas, moving hundreds of thousands to camps in Sinai or southern Gaza, framed as temporary, but echoing the trauma of the 1948 Nakba. Critics saw this as forced displacement, risking permanent loss of land and identity. Egypt flatly rejected taking refugees, citing security and political risks. Proponents claimed relocation was humanitarian, but most saw it as a dangerous, unworkable idea. For many, it was a colonialist fantasy, ignoring deep historical ties to the land. Economically, the plan was as grand as it was controversial. It envisioned Gaza's coast as a luxury tourist destination, dubbed the Trump Riviera, with hotels, marinas, and resorts. Beyond tourism, it proposed special economic zones, including a high-tech Elon Musk zone for advanced industries. Billions in investment were promised, with prosperity pitched as the path to peace. Critics warned this was disaster capitalism, profiting from crisis, with benefits likely flowing to foreign investors. The plan ignored Gaza's unresolved political status, raising doubts about who would truly control the new economy. Would this bring real prosperity, or just deep independency? As details of the plan began to surface and leak into the public domain, the potential ramifications became increasingly clear. The secrecy surrounding the proposal quickly evaporated. Organizations that were initially linked to the plan, or perceived to be associated with it, quickly distanced themselves in an attempt to mitigate any potential damage to their reputations. The Tony Blair Institute, facing mounting scrutiny, issued a firm denial of any direct role in the relocation initiative. They publicly reaffirmed their unwavering support for a two-state solution, emphasizing their commitment to a negotiated settlement. Jared Kushner, facing increasing criticism, attempted to reframe his earlier ideas and statements, characterizing them as purely hypothetical explorations. He emphasized that these were not intended as immediate or concrete policy proposals. Human rights groups, both domestic and international, issued strong condemnations of the relocation proposal. They argued that it constituted a clear violation of fundamental principles of international law and human rights. The United Nations, through various representatives, insisted that any lasting solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict must fully respect the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. This included their right to self-determination and the establishment of a sovereign and independent state. By the middle of 2025, the Great Trust Plan found itself in a state of limbo, its future uncertain. It had been officially rejected by numerous governments across the globe. However, the plan continued to circulate and be discussed within certain business and political circles, often behind closed doors. Its radical, economic-first approach to a deeply complex political and humanitarian issue remains a cautionary tale for future policymakers. The core question continues to linger in the air. Is this simply a fringe idea, relegated to the margins of political discourse? Or does it represent a sign of future attempts to impose top-down solutions without the necessary local consent and consideration for the affected populations?